Hey everyone, Eric Watson here, freelance writer, player of games, runner boards, recorder of videos, and tabletop role-playing aficionado. Welcome to the Monday edition by bi-weekly behind-the-scenes DM only live stream crafting Icewind Ale, in which I build, write, and prepare for a next session of Rime of the Frostmaiden. If you are playing characters of Valravn, Frey, Celestimund, or Celestimund, that's a ship, or Thimbleweed, this video is not meant for you. For the rest of you, welcome. There will be some spoilers. We stream our D&D sessions live on YouTube every Friday. Watch all of our D&D sessions and reviews here on YouTube. You can follow. God damn it! I'm gonna slow down for a second. You can follow me on Twitter at Rogue Watson and join our official Discord server with invite link in the description below. How many times have I done this? If you'd like to support the channel, please check out patreon.com/RogueWatson. The problem is I just started drinking some coffee, and now my brain is like firing back up again. After it had slowed way down. For our campaign, we use Roll20.net, and for streaming, I use Open Broadcaster software with Streamlabs. And yes, it is very, 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 very cold in Texas this November. And I realize that cold me is like, oh, it's 40 degrees, I'm freezing, and that's literally not quite freezing, but it's not a contest, damn it. This is very cold for us. It's very cold. You know what? Let me tell you, November is supposed to be a believe it or not, it's a pleasant month for Texas, right? I do a lot of yard work in November, like big projects I get done in November. I think we replaced our fence last year in November. It's usually like 60s and 70s and just nice as hell. Like everybody's walking around in jeans and a t-shirt throughout the month of November. Like we might have a few little cold dips and that's it. This fucking weather right now has been crazy. Like it has been just cold ass rain, and we've been dipping down into freezing, and the highs like all this week are like 40s and 50s. It is like we just skipped over fall, and I'm not happy about it. So yes, I'm a little chilly today, and I'm drinking coffee just to stay warm. I saw Oklahoma got like 6 inches of snow. That's not too far from us. That's crazy. I can't even imagine getting snow in November. But again, I'm a sweet summer child. Any amount of cold is like, no, I can't handle it. All right, so let's. And speaking of cold, and this is how I always segue into talking about Rime of the Frostmaiden, because the weather's always segues very nicely into what is going to be possibly even a showdown with the Frostmaiden. This still makes me so nervous about what the players are going to do and how to handle this situation. Thankfully, the players did play ball so far with regards to my villains of Ness Lantimir and Vaelishgaunt. First time we actually got to hear from Vaelishgaunt. We've been talking about him quite a bit, and it's always fun when a character's reputation precedes them, I think, in a story, as was the case here. And anytime you get to return with a villain who's got a lot of story stuff there is always nice. You know, the players were gearing up for a possible fight, and they had some little prep work. I loved the meeting in the stairs where they had to do like a little sidebar and discuss how to handle the situation. And I kind of threw a little bit of a wrench in it, which is the fact that this is not their big boss fight they're going to show down with. In fact, could very well be their allies for a pretty good chunk of time, I feel like. I mean, eventually I'd like these villains to betray them or something to go down, but I think in terms of these villains do generally want to get the codicil, and from the player point of view, they want to solve the Everlasting Night, right? That's their main thing. And for the villains, that's only like a side benefit, is to stop this Everlasting Night and really to get the goddess off their tails. And they think by getting into the city that they'll be able to do that. And plus, hey, it's just a lost city with tons of treasure and stuff down there. And I was pretty forthcoming and honest generally with these villains toward the plans for the players. So I'm glad that they decided to play ball with them, but I'm still not sure where we're going to go from here. I'm sure the players will try to snatch, the codicil from them or never let them have it, which would be the smart play. And I'm not even sure if the villains necessarily need to try and make a play for the codicil and try to leave them behind. Maybe they would rather work with the players for an extended period of time, in which case that could also change the cadence of the story. And maybe there's even a situation where the players never actually even talk to the Frostmaiden. If they end up working with these two villains so closely, there could be a possibility that if they never attack them and just want to work with them the whole time and agree to basically no longer explore the rest of Grimskala, because that would be something that these two would not want to do. They'd be like, look, once we have the codicil, we need to get the fuck out of here. I'm also thinking that in order to push the envelope a little bit on having a chance meeting with the Frostmaiden, I think I need to have the removal of the codicil be such a powerful pull and targeting force for the Frostmaiden that she'll be able to sense its removal, even if there is a non-detection spell going on in her own temple. She'd still be able to sense the fact that it's being removed. So I get a classic Indiana Jones maneuver where they, retrieve the thing and then the boulder rolls down. Although in this case, the boulder may just be an angry goddess. And that would allow me to create some kind of cool, chaotic finale here in the dungeon level, which means there's also a good chance that we may never actually see the rest of Grimskala, depending on how quickly the players move. If they come back from the trials, and then obviously our two villains will want to get the ball rolling, and it's weird because me as a DM, I don't want to tell the players, hey, you need to skip this dungeon and try to, keep doing this main quest. But through the NPCs that I'm controlling, they would very much say that. They'd be like, look, we don't care about looting this place. This isn't important. Keep your eye on the prize, which is getting the codicil, getting out of here, getting into the glacier, all that stuff. So they'll be wanting to speed things along. And hopefully my players have the wherewithal to, have a little bit more agency, because I don't want to necessarily take over there, but because I've got these very assertive NPCs, that's kind of the angle I'll be hitting them with. I mean, there's a whole tomb up here with a frost giant chief, the queen, I guess, of the clan, and I was going to put a nice little custom item in there. There's these skeletal guards which are guarding it, and then the actual, as written, the treasure is actually in the room behind her. I was going to put the treasure frozen in with her, and I was thinking instead of an axe, she's got a crown that like combines all the different iron stones, but a player can only activate like one at a time. Basically each one that gives like a buff to a different stat. I thought that was kind of a cool idea. But in order to get that crown, you would have to melt the ice to get to it, and then as soon as you start melting ice, that sets off the trap, which is actually in the book, I think. 13. Look at his corpse. Thrim's visage opens its mouth and reads a cloud of magical cold energy that fills the entire room, sealing the corpse in ice once more. Any creature in the room must succeed a DC 16 con save, taking 8d10 cold damage. That's pretty good. Even, I mean, this was originally a level 7 dungeon. That is deadly. So I might actually keep the stats the exact same on that, because that's DC 16 and 8d10 cold damage is no joke. I mean, that's another frost breath attack, I think. And yes, it's cold damage, and yes, they have ways of mitigating that, but I mean, this is a cold themed dungeon. That was, this would be the time to use all your cold resistant stuff. So I'm thinking about, and I redid the dynamic lighting here to just shut this back room, so this would be the one treasure you get. But the villains would be like, no, fuck that, let's not do that. Let's just get out of here. So I don't know how the players, the only timing wise that they would be able to, I feel like, explore the rest of Grimskala, which the only one that's really worth exploring is this north room for that treasure, and there's a fun little battle here. I don't even think I wouldn't encourage them to even go up to this higher levels. I mean, the rock is kind of a cool fight. I look at that. I even replaced the icon. I used the artwork from Ori and the Blind Forest, which is a fantastic game and a good sequel too. Which I think I actually streamed one of them here on the channel. Fun. Anyway, I don't even have a use for the bird, unfortunately, the rock. I don't know how to incorporate it too well, unless there's maybe the villains have to flee upstairs could be interesting, but forcing players to flee in battle is something my DM brain can't even wrap itself around. Like, I think cinematically you can do it, like if you paint a picture like hordes of people, but once you're on a map with a bunch of enemies, how do you even force players to start fleeing? Like, it just doesn't seem like it's gonna have happened, so I'm not sure. And there was just the ice piercers in the one level reading up to it. There's just not a lot going up there. All the important stuff is down here. So timing wise, the only way I could see them doing that is if they come back from the trials, because again, we're only halfway through the trials right now, so we'll do the other two this week. which none of them will be as long as the PvP arena. They were both. One of them was the social one, which was with the cannibals, which I do have. Actually, it's not this map. This was the PvP one. It is this map. And yes, there is a Reg Ed camp map, but I made another one because I wanted a bigger tent setting. I guess I could have used the other one, so that's kind of the one I threw together there without knowing who was going to pop in there. And the thing is, you just have to do what they say and cruel and start killing people, which I think Edmund will definitely play ball with, and then he'll complete the test. Maybe it goes tits up and he ends up talking back to them and gets attacked and killed by them. I don't know. That'd be kind of crazy. And then the endurance one is just Frey getting dropped into a freezing water and making a bunch of con saves, which I think she'll be able to show off pretty well there. So those won't take very long. The only timing-wise I could see them exploring the rest of this dungeon is if they come back from the trials, the villains say, okay, go open the vault door now, let's get the codicil, and they say, well, let's check up here first. Because I think they would have the leverage to do that. The villains would be like, ah, oh, damn it, but they're the ones that completed the test, so they, but can't really do anything about it. So they would allow the players, but and I would like to see it too, mainly because I would love the players to explore at least that north part and feel like they've seen a little bit more of this dungeon. Although, to be fair, between all the shit I've had to put, I've put them through on the island of Solstice ever since Crash Landing here. They have had probably their most arduous adventuring day of their career right now in Rime of the Frostmaiden. Somebody check on that. Look up the stats. Maybe Sunblight might have been a more arduous one, because I don't think they long rested. In fact, I think they did Cave of the Berserkers in between there too. So maybe that was comparable. But this is, they've short rested 3 times. I believe most, if not all of them, are out of hit dice. They're all sitting. Actually, Frey's not doing too bad. I guess it's just, actually, Frey and Thimbleweed aren't doing too bad. Edmund and Valrobin are at half health, and Celeste went down in the PvP arena fight, so she's looking real bad. So they are just, very few players right now are up for any kind of a fight. That doesn't mean I won't throw one at them, but that also will color how much they want to explore here, I think. Excellent, Stan. Finished a good session with 3 of my players. Players never retreat. Could get them to parlay with Oral. Been marshals for what, 2 weeks? I can tell. I don't have the right Google Doc open, but I do write down how long it's been since we started the campaign in universe. Yeah. So the plan, Hydrus, is for them to parlay with Oral if they end up talking with her. So either way, whatever happens here, I do want to give the players their agency and their choice to make in regards to the villains, the codicil, and Oral. And then it's my job as a DM to make sure we can continue the story for there. For example, I think it is not very fun and entertaining if the Frostmaiden just shows up and murders everybody. Game over, man. Like, that's just not very interesting. And there's more story to tell here, right? This isn't the end of the story. We still have 2 more chapters left, and I think it's really good content. I mean, Caves of Hunger is, other than Sunblight, the only major mega cool dungeon we've got. And I think Etherin's really fun in the way that Omu was pretty fun for us too. So I want to get to that content. Now, currently the players are basically stranded on this island, right? I crashed their Nautiloid. They've got nothing left. By the way, we've all conveniently completely forgotten about the pilot that we had, because that was a weird case where the player wasn't there and we're like, oh yeah, she can save him, and then she was like, yeah, I guess I'll save him, and then we just completely forgot about this person. So we'll probably just retcon that he died in the crash. I don't know. Otherwise, we've just been dragging around this poor gnome Ceramorph through all these things and there's nowhere to store him or anything. They don't have anything with them. They don't have a wagon. It's so easy to forget about these freaking NPCs and get so awkward in universe. It's like, oh yeah, has they been with us the whole time? They have been through quite the ringer here, and in order to get them back off this island, either Ness Lantimir, with her orb attuned, can teleport them off. Maybe she'll have to do, separate dimension door jumps or something. And although they took a boat to get here, so I'm not sure. I don't know. Maybe she's got some way of doing it. I'll have to come up with that, because obviously these guys had to have an escape plan. You know what she can do is she can animate dead, so maybe she could animate the dead and have them operate a ship. That'd be pretty cool. Turn into some kind of insane chase sequence. I was just gonna have a teleport, but like, if she can teleport out, then why didn't she just teleport in? So I'm running into my own plot hole here. The other thing is, and technically the villains could die here. I mean, it would be fun if they continued the story, but I still have Avarice that could fill that role later on when we get to the Ragged Glacier. So I could have these two die here. Or maybe just one of them dies and the other one doesn't. I could always have, if especially because the orb, I could make a decently powerful item, but the orb has a Neslantimir tethered to it, like a Lich Phylactery or something, Soul Jar or Crux, whatever you want to call it. So it could be that she could survive through that just as a sentient magic item. So Frostmaiden could show up and kill them and then fight the players, but then maybe the Frostmaiden at some point will realize, maybe with the Codicil. Well, I was trying to think. Maybe with the Codicil they can teleport out. But what are the odds that my villains actually get their hands on the Codicil physically? Because the players are going to grab it and keep very special, care of it. Obviously, everybody can go in there together. But it's going to be real hard to do a snatch and grab event in here. Even if the villains betray them. Ooh. I could try and set this up, but it's going to be very tricky to pull off. I mean, we could always just have everybody roll initiative. And I could try to get up a surprise round if everybody's just acting cool, and immediately when the Codicil is shown, they do something. She's not high enough level to do time stop unless I really wanted to do the cheat DM thing and give her something like time stop. I don't know if there's a weaker version of that, like a mass paralysis she could do to make it interesting. But clearly they would love to get their hands on the Codicil. And then what would probably be the best case scenario for me, if I was writing the story, which I'm not, I'm writing most of it, but the players are coming in and doing and changing things, is that, they've already done the first part, right? They work with the villains, and then they all go to the Codicil room. The villains grab the Codicil. That sets off Auril, who immediately starts targeting this location. The villains teleport out, leaving the players to have to deal with Auril. They have to fight her or some combination of minions for like a round or two. And then Auril, realizes who they are. They don't have the Codicil, somebody else does. And then Auril can then become the quest giver, where she's like, all right, now you work for me. If you want to live and get off this island, you will track them down, retrieve my Codicil for me, and maybe she would even answer some questions from the players and things. And that would be, I think, a really cool twist, that the players can then finally end up working with the Frostmaiden directly and really not have much of a choice. Yeah, Auril would loan them the rock. Ray has alert, no surprise round. Yeah. Only if she rages. She's got one left. She's got one left. You put your high-level barbarian through the ringer when they only have the one rage left and there's still a bunch of dungeon left. She does have it, and that would be a good opportunity to use it. Those 112 hit points, jeez. Oh, the feat. I don't think she actually took that feat. I think we're talking about the barbarian ability. Let me actually check that. Yeah. Which is, what is it? This one, Feral Instinct. If you're surprised at the beginning of combat and aren't incapacitated, you can act normally in your first turn, but only if you enter your rage for doing anything else in the turn, which I love thematically. It's like you're too angry to be surprised. Thank you, Stan. Glad you went there. It's a rock joke. That is, I think, the coolest scenario for me, is that they work with the villains initially. The villains betray them. Of course they do. The villains escape. That's a hard thing for me to pull off. Auril shows up, fights the players. That's cool. That should be easy. And then the twist is that you don't have to actually fight Auril. She just shows off her power a little bit, and then she actually gives everybody an ultimatum. And it's like, you work for me now. I'll get you off this island. You will hunt them down, retrieve my codicil, and at the same time, I feel a great disturbance in the force coming from the glacier. You can be my emissaries down there, you know, trying to be very vague and not willing to explain too much conversation. Do all this and I will lift the everlasting Rime, basically. So now the players work, instead of treating her like some, you know, just monstrous boss they fight, she's actually the quest giver. And they go to parlay. Now, complications. Complication 1, how do the villains get away with the codicil? Can they get away with the codicil? I mean, one thing is, the players are going to want to be like, all right, you two stay back here. We'll go in and open the door and retrieve the codicil. In which case, I'm in a weird situation where, like, my two villains are outnumbered. They're strong, deceptive. The party probably doesn't realize how strong they are. I gave Valor's Gaunt the Evoker Wizard stat block. If they're not careful, he will wreck them. Look at this freaking stat block. It's such a weird... This is the new spellcaster, right? Doesn't really have too many traditional spells. I mean, he's got Lightning Bolt, I guess. But literally, he can just cast or use his auto attack, his basic attack, Arcane Burst, at melee or range with an average of 25 force damage. He can do it 3 times. That's insane. That is insane damage output. Like, he will absolutely wreck them. He's got over 100 hit points as a wizard. Like, holy crap. So they don't really want to fuck with him. And to the credit, the villains don't want to fuck with them either. Like, they know they're outnumbered and they're pretty strong, and they just want to get the codicil and get out of here. Yes, Hydrus. I feel like that would be part of it. Like a Unicron, Galvatron situation where it's like, you don't have much choice, but I will, like, maybe power you up a little bit. Not to the degree that they do in a lot of the 5e campaigns where they make it just fucking pointless that you played the game and now you're just super powered to where now you're fighting a Serac and, you know, an ancient dragon, all that bullshit. But maybe give them some kind of benefit. There is a really interesting thing, which I haven't decided if I want to use yet. I should show you all. That's actually behind the door where the codicil is. So here, this door right here at 20 is the one that requires all the 4 tests to be completed. Then there's just a bunch of neat little tablets that kind of explain the trials that the players just went on, like the tenets of the Frostmaiden. And then the codicil is sitting there in the lectern on 22, which disappointingly does not really have a stat block, which I'm gonna have to fix. It looks cool. Literally the only thing about it is that if it's in your possession, you have resistance to cold damage. Attuning to the codicil may confer additional properties. And then there's nothing else about that. As you can learn Frost Fingers. There's like a spell that wizards can learn. So that's weird. I definitely want to make something more cool there. Get it? Cool. Frostmaiden. That should be an important friggin' item for sure. At the very least, maybe able to cast, like, kind of similar to an Instrument of the Bard, right? Where you can cast like a bunch of the ice spells, because if you have a fraction of her power, then you should be able to literally do her powers to some degree. But then there's something really crazy. Oh, and then, yeah, the actual Rime of the Frostmaiden is a poem. And I believe that's what opens the glacier, which is Interesting, I guess. The final room, Aural's Blessing. It's got a bunch of broken ice shards on the floor. The Frostmaiden contacts the character telepathically and asks, "Will you court death to receive my blessing?" She makes this offer to a character once only. A character agrees to receive Aural's Blessing, must succeed on a DC 21 Constitution saving throw. That is what's considered a very, very hard saving throw. On a failed save, the character is petrified, becoming an ice statue instead of a stone one. Straight up petrified. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that requires either a certain spell or the equivalent of Greater Restoration. Yeah, Greater Restoration will... You're just a straight up ice statue. Now, you could argue that, okay, well, in our house rules, it said you can go to a town and get it healed up. We did determine that you could go to Bryn Shander and revive somebody with enough money. So it's basically just a money penalty if you really want to get into the mechanics of it. Or you rule that maybe the person can't, or wouldn't give a shit and about letting them go, and not that rock's not going to take them, and that person's just screwed. So maybe there's a possibility that's just game over for that person. That feels weird, but you are accepting a yeah. And he says, "Will you court death to receive my blessing?" So that's kind of an interesting thing. If you succeed, you gain the blessing of the Frostmaiden, which it does say she can rescind at any time while she's alive. Blessing of the Frostmaiden, your eyes become as cold as ice. You gain immunity to cold damage, which is pretty fucking big. In addition, you can cast the Cone of Cold spell once per day with a spell save of DC 15. Pretty cool, the fact that it's just added onto your character sheet like that, but obviously the risk is crazy. DC 21, money and time. Yep, it's all just money and time, baby, money and time. So that is basically an epic boon right there, which I don't want to give every single player that. That's kind of bananas. But I know maybe I could play around with it, and players could even ask for different gifts without maybe knowing what they fully are. I've played around with that before. Maybe just give them small options they can choose, and then she'll give them some blessing. Or make it like a genie where they all get their one little wish, and it could be for themselves, it could be for somebody else, and hopefully one of them wishes to get them off the island. Or convince the genie in the Disney Aladdin movie and just be like, "You can't get us off this island, can you?" That wasn't actually a wish. So somehow I would love for my villains to betray Aural, because I don't see any way for the players to have that conversation with the Frostmaiden if they are still with the villains when she shows up, because she will be playing to kill. I guess the other thing the trickiest situation is if they lift the codicil off, the villains can't get it. They try and maybe they fail. I have the Frostmaiden still show up with their forces, and the villains. Maybe there's an interesting thing where she's like, "Give me the codicil, and I can get us out of here. I can teleport us out of here." And then, obviously the players would not. If I was a player, I would not trust that for a second, because if they do get over, then she'll just teleport the two of them out of there. If they don't, then it starts getting trickier, because I would basically argue that, okay, well, maybe my villains could still teleport out. I could maybe try and still let them escape if I cared to still let them return at some point, and then I feel like the Frostmaiden would just follow them now. Well, I guess the Frostmaiden, if they've got the codicil, if the players have the codicil, the Frostmaiden would then target them if they've got it, because the idea being this codicil doesn't leave the room, right? People can take the Auralites can take pilgrimages to it. They can read it and absorb its teachings or whatever, but they're supposed to leave it in this room. So when it leaves the room, that's what triggers a divine warning to Aural, who knows that somebody's in here trying to steal something. Something bad's going on. Bryn Shander with an ice statue would be rough. I agree. It would just be a cool moment though, right? So much rests on a save. I don't know if I would pose that to every single person. I think I would just pose that to one person. And I would almost do it like... The timing on that is weird because it I would like to offer them that, but they would have to somehow open this door before actually getting to the codicil, maybe. Because then I could do it where it's not the Frostmaiden actually telling them, it's maybe like a holy chamber of the Frostmaiden that transforms them. So maybe it's just like inscribed in the room that says, "Will you court death to receive my blessing?" And there's like an elevated like ice block or something there, with like a statue or something. I kind of would like to offer the characters that option. Or I can have, you know, at some point after they parlay, I can have her offer them that option directly, I guess. They do have Valen with them, by the way. I did have Nas vacate the body and give them Valen. Technically, if we're doing by ghost rules, if she leaves the body, I think they're supposed to be fine. But, excuse me, for the sake of just too many NPCs in the room and having too many moments on top of each other, I had her come out just unconscious. And that way they can deal with Valen's response and story and stuff at a different point, ideally during the denouement, after this crazy action has taken place, and hopefully they will have the wherewithal to save Valen as well. So either way, I plan on having the Frostmaiden show up, probably down here, because I assume they will grab the codicil, and as soon as they start to leave, that will trigger her forces. I was originally not actually just going to have minions. Maybe spawn as the first wave of Auril appearing, but I'm not even sure the players could survive that, given their current condition. But maybe it would allow Vaelish Gaunt to show off in a turn, like he gets to go boom, 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 and do his huge stings. They're like, oh shit, this guy can really do some shit. That's why I've got down here 4 snow golems and an ice elemental, which normally not a tough fight for my level 11 player characters, but again, I kind of feel for them. They're just really, really pretty weakened right now. Or I just have her show up with some minions, because your bosses always got to have minions with them. And as I talked about it last time, I'm tempted to just skip her first form, even though it's the iconic one on the cover of the book, which we don't even use that splash page as our landing screen, so I don't know if the players even care. But it's really not very impressive at all. I mean, the impressive part, I guess, is that she goes through 3 forms. So she's got 300 actual hit points or whatever it is. But this first form just isn't very interesting to run or very fearsome when, you've hyped up the fact that there's a freaking god coming at you, and it's really just kind of a monster who attacks with like slightly cold tinged talons, or can shoot you with like a chromatic orb a few times. It's just not... I guess she's got legendary actions, but it's not very interesting. Her second form, however, is way more interesting and has a lot more going on. She can create ice methods, and then she can explode them, which is... I love that about methods. And in fact, I applied that to my frozen gargoyles, which were a stronger version of methods. She's got a use of Cone of Cold she can bring out. This ice stasis ability is really, really cool, that she can just capture people with a DC 21 charisma save to trap in a crystal, and then the whole time they basically can't do shit except repeat that save, and then on their turn they take 66 cold damage automatic. So other people can break them out of the crystal, but it's immune to everything except fire damage. That is just a really cool dynamic to the fight. Like, holy crap, that's interesting. Her basic attacks are unfortunately really lame. She's got Ice Dart, which is effectively like a magic missile type. I guess it's a 1d4 plus 3 and then also 1d6, so it's better than that. She can hurl 3 of them, but they're just little pinpricks, I feel like. But those abilities are cool, and like I said, she can summon Mephits. I don't like her action economy with summoning Mephits. She can either do it as her entire action, which is a huge waste of her action, but she can also do it as a legendary action, which is better, but unfortunately it's balanced to where it takes all 3 actions. So the only thing she does as a legendary action in one round is to create a Mephit. The more interesting thing is that she can explode Mephits with that same action, which means I should probably have her start with some methods so that she can just start exploding them. First form is just a warm-up. So I actually really like this snow form. I was comparing it because I thought I wouldn't end up using that, and I would instead use the Tomb of Beasts Fey Queen. But honestly, I think I like this second form of Auril. The Fey Queen does have a good reaction, like a really powerful Hellish Rebuke. I do like the fact that as an action, she can just whip up this snowstorm around her, and then people can gain exhaustion. That's pretty compelling and scary. So maybe I'll use some things here. Snow blind, cause them to be blinded by swirling snow. That's pretty interesting. But I still need to, and the idea is, again, this would be a really cool, tough boss fight, but the players are not meant to fight this by the end. Instead, what I'd like to do here is use this as a, you know, like in a JRPG where they throw a big bad villain at you early game, and it's pretty obvious from the beginning that, like, oh, I'm supposed to lose this fight. Like, this dude is doing so much damage to me, and I'm not doing shit. You're just, even though you put me in traditional combat, like, you know I can't win this fight. And then sure enough, I got my ass kicked. And then it's supposed to be just a preview of, like, oh, one day you'll be strong enough to actually take him down in a legit fight. I'm kind of trying to do that here, but I mean, as written, they would be able to fight her legitimately right now with this stat block. Even weakened as they are. I mean, 136 hit points. Does have legendary resistance, which helps keep all that shit off. But now they don't know how many of her hit points are, and I may scale up some of her abilities so that later on, when I hit them with her in Etherin, I can use maybe the same stat block and it be, you know, still pretty effective. Plus, she would then obviously transform into her third form, which I haven't looked at too much, but it's this weird like ice crystal thing that just shoots people with its ray, laser ray. Laser ray. Party agrees to work for Auril. Will their action be considered a soft serve? Oh, you guys are really coming at it with the puns. I appreciate it. Hate that as a goddess, her cone of cold recharges after a short or long rest. Like, how the fuck does the goddess of winter get one cone of cold off per short rest? That doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, it said she's like a minor goddess of winter, and she uses a lot of her power to power the Rime, but like, come on, man. So lame. Yeah, this ice. I think I'm gonna change this ice flurry to the one from the Snow Queen. Actually, was cold snap. Temperature on it to drop dramatically. This is from Tomb of Beasts, by the way. Every creature within 30 feet must make a successful DC 17. And by the way, this stat block is a CR 16. It doesn't actually seem that much stronger than Auril's. I mean, same hit points, slightly better armor class, same distances, immunities. Does Auril actually even have? That's weird. The second form doesn't even have regular spellcasting. That's crazy. Yeah, I don't care about giving 2d4 piercing damage. That's really dumb. Each creature within 30 feet who is not immune to cold damage must succeed on a DC. Although what are her DCs like in here? Oh, yeah, her DCs are 21, which is crazy. That doesn't match her CR level at all, or her attack. It's like they gave her ancient epic level saves, but none of the rest of her stats reflect that. Only has a +7 to hit. 21 is crazy. Also, if I put this as legendary action, I need to lower that. Yeah, at the very least, it needs to be recharged 5 to 6. But Ice Stasis is a recharge 5 to 6, which is pretty nice. That would... Has there ever been a stat block that has 2 different recharges? Because that's probably why it doesn't, because it would be tricky for the DM to remember, like, okay, I'm rolling this one for this one and this one for another one. You know what I'm tempted to do? Is just fucking re-break this stat block completely. Put Ice Stasis as a legendary action. Maybe that's the 3-cost action. Just say, fuck it to these multiple costs. Just let me decide how often I want to use legendary actions and how bad they are. And then you can do Cone of Cold as a recharge. I mean, that DC is what's going to fucking kill him. Jesus Christ. Yeah, I mean, 1 Ice Stasis if she gets that off, 1 Cone of Cold if she gets that off, would be devastating to the players. It's just funny that her little Ice Morning Star and Ice Darts are so ineffective compared to that. Maybe we should lower the... Even though it uses DC 21 for everything. Give her legendary actions after each turn. Alright, you have to be more specific on that, Jason. Does that mean after every single player's turn she got to do a thing? That's a lot more legendary actions than most creatures get. Boy, you know what? If I keep it like this, that really does show off how fucking scary she is. If I keep this as a legendary reaction, Ice Flurry, each creature within 30 feet who is not immune to cold damage must succeed on a DC 21 con saving throw or gain a level of exhaustion. And exhaustion would really freak the players out. That's impressive. I do find that's the few times I've used legendary actions, I do find it very tricky to keep up with, like, okay, how many have I used and when? And usually I err on the side of caution because the last couple times I've used legendary actions, the players have been just completely getting their butts kicked, and I've had to pull back on them. So I like start out going real strong and using, you know, layer actions or legendary actions, whatever I've got, as much as possible. And then after like 2 rounds, I'll just forget to do them. Which, granted, a lot of times I do forget about shit, to be fair. But like when it comes to that, I definitely read the room, and I'm like, oh man, I gotta pull back on this. Yeah, and I need to have her minions. You know, Jeff, now that you mention it, I could do her fucking Ice Meva thing. Be a layer action. That way it just keeps spawning. I don't know how long I want this fight to go. I mean, eventually the players will fight her. Again, I want to create that scenario where this is a fight you're not supposed to win. And maybe she just ends up, you know, shooting them all with a giant cone of cold, and they're all just getting their asses kicked. There's minions left and right. And then she realizes, like, enough, you know, and she ends the fight. She's like, enough. And then she starts to parlay with them, and because they're just on their back feet, they just have no choice but to kind of accept working for them. 10 equals a proficiency bonus of +4, so 8 + 4 equals 12. Stat is +9. It's her charisma. You read it right, Sylvan Fox. She has a 28 charisma. Yep. That's where it is. So that's why. So her spell ability casting is super powerful, but physically her best stat is still only a +3. So when she actually swings her stupid Ice Morningstar or Ice Dart, she doesn't do anything. So she would leave minions to doing melee damage. She'd want to stay in the back and do his abilities. It's interesting that she just doesn't literally cast spells, though. Got Cone of Cold and Ice Stasis. So maybe I just have her last, like, 2 rounds. I got to 2 rounds. And still kind of show off some of her stuff. feel like I could turn like Frost Fingers into like her basic attack. Although that's also a save, isn't it? I guess I need an attack roll. Yeah, physical attack's not so much. I need to give her a basic attack that's not an attack, if that makes sense. Like a cantrip type ability. Doesn't the first one just had unlimited chromatic orbs, didn't it? Like that worked. Yeah, isn't that weird? Like plus 13. It's weird when she changes forms. She loses her good basic attacks, but gains some really cool abilities. Like they had to rebalance her step of the way. Also, the first one can teleport around, which is pretty nice and handy. But at the very least, we should give her these same abilities. Touch of Frost. I would probably call it something different than Chromatic Orb. Frost Orb or something, where she just hurls like a frosty grenade. I see no universe in which I would use Ice Morningstar or Ice Dart. Because these use Charisma. They gotta use Charisma, because it's a +9. I assume it's the way you get +9. Look at Valravn, yeah. Why don't we... Just in case, I'm gonna move this to the bottom. Eat them. Some better basic attacks, at least. Touch of Frost. Still not very strong. Correct, but plus 13 is a lot better. 3d8 cold damage. Right, yeah. You auto-populated if I didn't say anything. Alright, 5 feet. That's true. Actually, Rangers do an aura of... Are you talking about the exhaustion? Just always have like the snowy thing going on. Key here being that she's got an attack. Basic attack. 15. Target. Also does 3d8 cold damage. I may have to scale that up too. That's not very impressive. Chromatic Orb. You can scale that up, can't you? Yeah, at higher levels you cast a spell, you can spell slot second level or higher, the damage increases by 1d8. Let's make Frost Orb do at least on average 20 damage, right? 5d8? What does that look like? 22 average damage. That's a lot better. That's a lot better. Neutral evil, yeah. Give her a little bit more personality. Tricky. Kind of want to make her nice and inscrutable, but that's also... That can be frustrating for players to deal with. What minions should she come with, too? Because even if she's super strong, she needs to have minions with her. Ooh, giving her Misty Step. Solve a lot of problems. Yeah, her first form is At Will Misty Step, so let's definitely give her At Will Misty Step. The second form as well. That way she can bypass any bullshit like Charlatan Balls. Although I was thinking it would be interesting to have Charlatan be kind of a kryptonite to her, but I don't know if that would give the players too big an advantage. And it might fuck up their ability to parlay with her. So I may backpedal from that. this like spellcasting NPC. I mean, the plan is not to kill them, but you know, players pusher. You would certainly at least down them. And then it's up to the players to revive each other. She is not a nice person to work for, I will say that. I'll also have to probably like give her a lot more hit points, but I don't, for the purposes of this fight, I don't think I have to do too much. But for the when they meet her again, I'll have to get serious about it because that'll be a fight to the death. But and she does have that other form to go to. In fact, I need this because that's kind of hilarious that it tells you she's got multiple forms right in her friggin' stat block. Players do not need to know that information. Call her Oral the Frost. You already called Oral. No, she's not. Clearly 136 hit points, also not enough for a god. You a god. No, I don't think. I have a legendary action that she turns on. That could just be an aura that goes always on. That would be. I wonder if it'd be like if you end your turn 30 feet. Know that Winter Wolves is something she rides around with. Ice Mephits or something she rides around with. Yeah. That's also part of the plan if it actually comes to that, Sylvan. Again, this is all course correction. Essentially, Oral surprisingly not being the big bad. Neither her nor Ness Lantamir / Gaunt are actually the big bads of this campaign. I'm trying to think. Well, I guess it's just kind of there's multiple factions vying for this lost city, which all are going to turn into hopefully villainous factions I can run with. We still have Avarice, and hopefully maybe she is leveled up quite a bit, and she's got, you know, powerful Shardlin warriors, and maybe I can, you know, flavor them as like full-on like suits of Shardlin armor and all kinds of badassness at this point. Freaking run around like blackguards or something. That'd be pretty cool. And then I can do something crazy. I would love to introduce a new villain, a new player to the table in Etherin. I don't think I'm going to go the Demi-Lich route. I was thinking going more maybe Elder Brain or something. That was also previous like wizards that were down there that were transformed. Yeah, that is true. Although a lot of TPK, it depends on the scenario, right? Like if the players are fighting to some vicious monster, yeah, you could maybe still have them survive. But like an undead, like if fighting a bunch of undead and they die, like there's no reason why the undead wouldn't just eat them. But if you're fighting, you know, people or sentient creatures that would have something to gain from, you know, your capture, then yeah, certainly that would be interesting. And I think that could make for a very cool story twist and moment in the story is to have the players fall. I don't plan on having to get that far, but we'll see. I would like to at least go a round or two. In terms of minions, my initial plan was to go with waves, like maybe the first wave is like snow golems and the ice elementals show up, and then maybe Gaunt and Lantamir can help fight for a time, but like maybe somehow in the fight I can have them snatch it would be really interesting and fun, I think, if they snatch the code. It would give more motivation for the players and for Oral, to me, is if my villains ended up snatching the codicil and getting away with it, then that adds more incentive to throw down, versus if the villains just die here, because maybe what could happen is the players are like, you know what? Yes, we've been fighting the Frostmaiden's forces this whole time, and she's been harrying us, but it's Lantamir's fault that all this is happening. She's been trying to search for a wizard. These are the wizards that have caused this problem of finding the city that freaked the Oral out and has been shutting everything down. Instead, maybe the players turn on the villains before they even have before I have a chance to do it to them. And when the Frostmaiden shows up, they're like, they serve up my villains on a silver platter and say, hey, look, we'll help you take these ones down. That could be a really interesting twist, and I kind of want to let that happen. It's really hard to prepare for all of these situations, because I don't know how that, depending on how they do, maybe it becomes a battle between these villains kicking ass with the Frostmaiden's, forces then working with the players, in which case maybe I can let that be a big fight against these two villains. Maybe one or both of them can survive and escape, but then that would also help advance the working with the Frostmaiden storyline, so we could have that happen as well. So at the end of the day, I think no matter what happens, the only weird thing that could change things around is if the players agree to escape. If the players never give the codicil to the villain, and the villains never get their hands on it, but they do want to escape with the villains and say, hey, let's get out of here, but we're going to take the codicil. And maybe I can be insistent and make it be like she has to be in possession of it or something in order to teleport out. There's just a few weird things I need to try to work my way around, and I'll probably go crazy trying to come up with all the different parameters and scenarios that could happen, and then something will happen that I won't have been prepared for anyway, right? Like a person could just go crazy trying to come up with that. So all I can do is try to have all that information ready, be prepared for the Frostmaiden to show up here, regardless of what happens, and either it's a fight or it becomes this tense chase sequence. And either way, I think this is pretty much going to end our Grim Skull adventure, because once that happens, they're not, she's not going to let them loot the dungeon or do anything else, and the players are, it's going to be on from there. So the one way we'll end up using the rock probably is if the players do end up working for the Frostmaiden, and then she can offer that owl, which by the way, I was reflavoring that rock as the owl that they had summoned to fight the Shardland Dragon, that the Frostmaiden took for themselves. And then she would offer that as their new mount, I guess, flying mount, because it's a giant-ass bird. And then that's how they can get to the glacier and either chase the villains down, or maybe she'll be like, if the players end up with the codicil and the villains are dead, or even if they escape, she'll be like, all right, in order to course correct the campaign, I feel something has been reawakened down in the glacier, down in the city. She's not going to tell them very much about her history with it. And then she will still give them the quest, like, you've got the codicil, you've proven yourselves strong, even though some of them may be lying dead on the floor. You will be my emissaries down into the glacier. And I don't know how, whatever specific information I want to give them, or a tease or something. And basically, and she'll be say, hey, if you do this for me, you go down there into that lost city and, turn off whatever disturbance is happening or something, then I will lift the Rime, the Nightfall or something. So that will be, so even if everything goes completely haywire, she will still give them the ultimatum, and she will hopefully have proven the fact that the players cannot fight her legitimately, especially in her own temple, where I would probably just keep throwing minions at them. In fact, maybe if it starts even getting to where the players start kicking my ass, I will just start spawning snow golems around them like fucking crazy and basically just force this fight to end. So we will see if we can pull that off. Thank you so much, Jeff. Yes, Chris also amazing DM. I've had to do a lot more work for this story than I ever have had to do in a previous published campaign. It's been, I think, good for me as a DM. It's certainly been a lot more challenging, and I've appreciated trying to rise to that challenge of fixing the story and making it more interesting and really diving into it. And I knew going into this campaign it would require a lot of modification on my end and a lot of focusing on the elements that I liked and eliminating the elements that I didn't like. There was a whole weird demon plot line with the burger and stuff that I just ignored. So yeah, compared to something like Tomb, where I almost ran it pretty close to as written with just a few little changes here and there. The bad thing is doing what I've had to do means I haven't been able to do as much of the individual character arc stuff that I did in Tomb, because I could focus in Tomb. I could entirely focus on adding those little character quest arcs because the story was pretty much just done. And here I've had to just insert the characters wherever I can that's relevant to the own changes that I've had to make. And thankfully the players have responded pretty well to that in all those different areas, which has been nice and out pretty well. So I appreciate it. All right, folks, I think that is going to do it for this Monday edition of Crafting Icewind Dale. If you enjoy the content, please do check out patreon.com/Rogue Watson. Shouts to Platinum patrons Joe, Will, Thomas, Stan, William, Brandon, Genocider, David, Eclectic, Roleplay Roll, Christopher, Brian, William, David, Corey, Koa1337, Kyle, Matthew, Big Nut, Greenlee, and John. And gold patrons RPG, Papercrafts, Pretty Boy, and Yuma, Marcus, Dead Lizard, Lounge, Sam, Lumpy Spots, Jerome, Nathan, Fast Like a Tortoise, Scott, Stephanie, Refus, and Carol. Thank you all very much for your support. I will see you all for more crafting on Thursday. By the way, we do have our normal stream this Friday. However, we'll be off next week, so because it's Thanksgiving holiday in the US, so you will have to wait an entire week longer for 69, baby. Not gonna be next week. All right.